I stood outside the company gates, clutching the brown envelope that now held my shattered dreams. My knees trembled, not from weakness, but from the weight of humiliation. People passed by, whispering. My chest tightened. I had been laid off. After 10 loyal years, all it took was one meeting, 10 minutes, and my life had crumbled. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, he walked by. Uche. With his smug grin, tailored suit, and that irritating smirk stretching across his face like a slap. Ah, he mocked, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Big man Joseph finally meets reality. Maybe try selling recharge cards at the junction? The security guards laughed. Even the receptionist tried to suppress a chuckle. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Something inside me cracked, and I simply walked away, shamed, heartbroken, jobless. But what no one knew, not even Uche, was that the man they laughed at was about to rise from that humiliation with a fire that would consume them all. Joseph Naji was a seasoned operations manager at Apex Tech, a thriving logistics company in Lagos. Quiet, composed, and respected by many junior staff, Joseph had built a reputation for diligence. But in recent months, rumors had started spreading: cost-cutting, foreign investors, a new board. People were scared, but Joseph had hoped his years of loyalty would protect him. They didn't. On the day of the company-wide restructuring, Joseph was handed a pink slip. No warning. No appreciation. Just, "We thank you for your service." But what stung more than the job loss was the reaction of Uche, the company's new deputy director, young, flashy, and arrogant. Uche had always harbored silent resentment for Joseph's professionalism and quiet popularity. With Joseph out of the way, he could now rule the office like a king. And he did. Uche began throwing parties with company funds, sleeping with interns, and promoting only those who worshipped his feet. Joseph watched from afar, his heart aching, not because he wanted revenge, but because he had poured his life into a place that spat him out. He spent weeks unemployed, drained, and desperate. His wife, Adora, was supportive, but the house bills didn't understand love. His daughter's school fees loomed over his head. He sold his car. Then the generator. Then their family gold. Still, nothing came. But life, like a storm, sometimes washes blessings ashore in the midst of ruin. Joseph's old friend, Adedeji, who had moved to London 5 years ago, called one evening. "I heard what happened, Joe. Come to Abuja. Let's talk." With nothing left to lose, Joseph took a bus the next morning. At Adedeji's glass-walled office in Maitama, the conversation was simple and short. "I'm acquiring a stake in logistics across West Africa. I need someone I can trust to oversee expansion. Come lead the Nigerian operations. You'll start small, but I promise you, you'll build something that'll shake the industry." Joseph's eyes welled up. He didn't need to ask questions. Adedeji was not just a friend, he was a brother. For the next 2 years, Joseph worked with unmatched determination. While Apex Tech sank under Uche's mismanagement, Joseph's company, Starflow Logistics, rose like a phoenix. He worked late nights, recruited bright minds, and built an ethical company with scalable systems. Then came the day when opportunity knocked. Apex Tech's board, desperate and bleeding money, began seeking buyers. Their flagship branch in Lagos had lost key clients. The scandal involving Uche and a married junior staff had gone viral. Investors were withdrawing. Adedeji called Joseph to a late-night Zoom meeting. "We're buying them." Joseph paused, stunned. "You mean Apex Tech?" Adedeji smiled. "Yes. And you, Joseph, you're the new managing director." Joseph leaned back, eyes closed, heart pounding. The humiliation from 2 years ago played in his mind like an old movie. He whispered, "Then let's do it." Joseph arrived at Apex Tech's Lagos branch in a black SUV. Dressed in a crisp gray Agbada, with a confident smile and quiet grace, he walked into the same reception area where he was mocked 2 years ago. The receptionist who had laughed at him stood up, mouth agape. "Good morning, sir. You're Joseph Nagy. Your new MD." The room went silent. Whispers began circulating like wildfire. When Uche was summoned to the boardroom, he swaggered in as usual until he saw Joseph sitting at the head of the table. No, this is a prank, right?" he stuttered. Joseph didn't flinch. "Uche, you're hereby relieved of your duties effective immediately. HR has your exit documents." Uche's face turned pale. "You can't do this." "I already did." Security escorted him out. The same guards who had laughed at Joseph that fateful day now saluted him with trembling hands. But Joseph wasn't finished. Weeks later, at a company-wide town hall, Joseph made a shocking announcement. "I'd like to introduce our new Deputy Director of Corporate Strategy, Miss Amaka Amidi." A hush fell over the crowd. Amaka. Uche's ex-girlfriend. The one he had dumped and humiliated after cheating with a younger intern. Amaka was smart, disciplined, and had worked under Joseph during Starflow's rise. She was now being handed the same position Uche once held, but through merit, not manipulation. When journalists picked up the story, the headlines exploded. Ex-staff returns to buy company that fired him, promotes former boss's ex. From fired to founder, the Joseph Nagy story. But the media only scratched the surface. What they didn't know was that Joseph had only taken one thing personally, the laughter. Joseph stood one evening on the rooftop balcony of the Apex Tech building, watching the Lagos skyline shimmer. Amaka joined him, smiling. "You changed the game," she said. He chuckled, sipping his malt. "I just reminded them not to mock a man when he's down." Silence hung between them as the wind blew softly. "You know," Joseph continued, "revenge isn't always in the shouting. Sometimes, it's in the quiet rise. In dignity. In turning pain into power." She nodded. "And in choosing to build, not destroy." The story ends not with Joseph dancing over Uche's ruins, but with him building something lasting, proof that humiliation doesn't define a man. His fall wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a greater rise. Moral: never underestimate a humble heart. And never mock someone's pain, you may unknowingly be mocking your future boss. The boardroom was quiet now. The days of wild laughter, shady deals, and favoritism were over. Joseph's leadership brought not just order but a new kind of energy, professional, focused, and visionary. But with power came the challenge of healing a broken system. Joseph began by reshuffling the company structure. He implemented merit-based assessments and dissolved the toxic clique culture Uche had established. Training programs were launched. Underpaid junior staff received long-overdue raises. And for the first time in years, Apex Tech became a company people were proud to work for. Amaka, his new deputy, was instrumental in the turnaround. Her strategies helped secure new contracts in Abuja and Port Harcourt. Together, they rebuilt the trust of clients, slowly turning profit margins from red to black. But not everything was smooth. Some employees still held on to old loyalties. One afternoon, an anonymous internal memo circulated, criticizing Joseph's rise, implying favoritism toward Amaka, and mocking his humble past. Instead of launching a witch hunt, Joseph addressed it during a general meeting. "I have read the note," he said calmly. "I am not ashamed of where I came from. Yes, I was once laughed at right here in this very building. But I didn't return for revenge, I came back to fix what was broken." He paused, letting the silence sink in. "I will never apologize for promoting competence over ego." The staff erupted in applause. That moment sealed his legacy, not just as a comeback story, but as a transformative leader. Meanwhile, Uche's life had spiraled into chaos. Without his job and reputation, he became a pariah in the corporate world. Word of his misconduct had reached nearly every HR network in Lagos. His lavish lifestyle collapsed, his Mercedes was repossessed, the mansion foreclosed, and his once loyal circle evaporated. One night, sitting alone in a cheap beer parlor, Uche watched a YouTube video titled "The Man Who Bought His Betrayer's Empire." It was Joseph, talking about humility, purpose, and leadership. Uche's hands trembled as he took another swig of his cheap drink. His laughter had once been louder than Joseph's tears. Now, Joseph's silence echoed louder than any of Uche's past victories. His phone vibrated, a message from an old friend. "Bro, you see Joseph's Forbes feature? Wild. That man's a legend." Uche didn't reply. He had nothing left to say. A year after Joseph's triumphant return, the company was not only stable but thriving. Apex Tech had merged with a Ghanaian partner, expanding into regional logistics and tech-driven delivery systems. Joseph's name began circulating in investment circles, and for the first time, his daughter was able to attend a private school without delays in tuition. Life had finally found balance again. One Sunday after church, Joseph and his wife Adora sat in their modest but newly renovated home. She looked at him across the dinner table, her eyes filled with admiration. "You never let the pain harden you," she said softly. "You didn't seek revenge, you brought restoration." Joseph smiled. Sometimes, the best revenge is peace. But just as peace settled into his life, a surprise message arrived. It was from Uche. Subject: "Forgive me, Joseph. I know I'm the last person you expected to hear from. I deserve your silence. But please read this." Uche's email detailed the downfall. Joseph had already heard whispers of how he lost everything, how his fiancée left him, how even his parents were ashamed of him. He confessed to mocking Joseph out of insecurity, knowing that Joseph was everything he feared: composed, competent, and respected. But the line that struck Joseph most read, "When I laughed as you cried, I thought I was powerful. But now I cry alone, and no one's left to laugh or listen." Joseph closed the laptop and exhaled deeply. Forgiveness was never easy, especially when the wound was still fresh beneath the scars. But he had already built his life far beyond the rubble Uche left him in. This wasn't about Uche anymore. It was about Joseph's own peace. A few days later, at a business seminar in Ikeja, Joseph saw a familiar face among the attendants: Uche. He looked nothing like the proud man from 2 years ago. His suit was worn out, eyes sunken, and the confident stride replaced by a hesitant shuffle. Their eyes met. Uche walked over, hands in pockets. "I didn't think you'd come." "I wasn't sure I would either," Joseph replied. There was a long pause. Then Joseph gestured to the chair beside him. "Sit. We're all students in this life." Uche sat, eyes wide with disbelief. The seminar began. And for the next 2 hours, the two men, once enemies, now men shaped by time and consequence, sat side by side. Joseph didn't need to humiliate him. Life had already done that. His presence, his growth, his grace, that was enough. Months later, during a mentorship session with young professionals, Joseph shared his journey. Not with bitterness, but with honesty. Pain is a strange teacher. It reveals who you are when no one is clapping. "I lost my job and was laughed at, but I used that silence to rebuild myself quietly." Don't waste your downfall. It may be the beginning of something bigger than your pride. A young lady raised her hand. "Sir, do you regret what happened with Uche?" Joseph paused. "No. Because without that moment, I wouldn't be standing here. And perhaps, neither would he." He smiled, voice steady. "Revenge is loud, but redemption whispers. Choose wisely. Mocking someone's fall today could mean kneeling before them tomorrow. Be humble in your victories, and gracious in others' losses. Life has a way of flipping the script.